Let's say you're just a random African dude, and you've been elected the president of an African country that recently gained independence from France. Your country is one of the poorest in the world. You have little infrastructure, few natural resources, and a largely rural population. Only a small fraction of your people have received a formal education. Agriculture is your main economic sector, but it's vulnerable to droughts and climate change. On top of that, the government is heavily reliant on foreign aid and former colonial powers for economic survival. You'd really like to make this better, but many African nations that have attempted rapid economic development have sacrificed human rights, democracy, and the harassment from the West. You want your country to be prosperous while also maintaining social and political freedoms. But how do you go about doing that? Firstly, what resources do you have? You should take stock of what your country can offer. What have you got?
Agriculture, mainly subsistence farming. Gold deposits, but limited infrastructure for mining. A young and growing population.
That's it? Seriously? This is going to be harder than I thought. Okay, so the gold mines. You take out a big fat loan from the International Monetary Fund and use it to finally develop the mining sector. With that, you can export minerals to global markets and use the revenue to pay off your debts and develop infrastructure. Running the government? Everyone is uneducated and unskilled. Who will run the country? Right. Well, let's see. The French. Yes, many of the colonial-era administrators can continue working here while you build a pool of educated professionals among your citizens. No problem. So, with the mining sector up and running, you start selling gold and other minerals to foreign investors. This provides your government with much-needed revenue, allowing you to invest in infrastructure, health, and education. You also need to strengthen agriculture, since most of your people depend on it for their livelihoods. To modernize farming, you introduce irrigation projects, subsidize fertilizers, and promote crop diversification. By now, your economy is growing, but challenges remain. You're still heavily reliant on foreign aid, and much of the wealth from mining isn't reaching ordinary citizens. Corruption is also a problem, with government officials skimming off the top. At the same time, civil rights and the rule of law are still being protected. Well, kind of. Since independence, your country has seen multiple coups. Authoritarian rule have kept the economy from truly taking off. But now, you're in charge. You want to do things differently. You don't want Burkina Faso to be another struggling West African nation that relies on foreign aid and political instability. You want real change. The first step is cleaning up the government. Corruption has been a major problem for decades, so you launch a major anti-corruption campaign. Government officials and businesses that have been exploiting state resources are removed from power. Transparency is enforced in mining contracts, and instead of foreign corporations taking most of the wealth, you ensure that revenue from gold and other resources actually benefits the people. Next, you focus on security. For years, terrorism has ravaged parts of the country, disrupting trade and daily life. Without security, there can be no investment or economic progress. So, you strengthen the military, invest in local defense forces, and create strong regional alliances to combat extremism. The days of jihadist groups controlling parts of the country are over. Burkina Faso is reclaiming its land and its future. With security and governance improving, the real work begins. Your country is rich in gold, but instead of letting foreign companies take everything, you negotiate better deals. A percentage of all mining profits now goes directly to public infrastructure, roads, schools, hospitals, funded by Burkina Faso's own wealth. But mining alone isn't enough. You need to diversify. Agriculture has always been a major part of the economy, but farmers have struggled with outdated tools, poor irrigation, and reliance on unstable weather patterns. So, you invest in modern farming techniques, introduce large-scale irrigation projects, and promote crop diversity. Farmers now produce not only for survival, but for profit, exporting goods across the region. At the same time, you recognize that Burkina Faso needs industry. Instead of just exporting raw materials, you build factories to process gold, cotton, and agricultural products domestically. This creates jobs and increases the value of what your country produces. Education also becomes a priority. You increase funding for schools, vocational training, and universities. Instead of relying on foreign experts, Burkina Faso now has its own skilled workforce. Engineers, doctors, and entrepreneurs are rising from within the country. Your efforts are paying off. For the first time in decades, Burkina Faso is experiencing real economic growth. People are getting richer, jobs are increasing, and foreign investors see the country as a stable and promising place to do business. You hold free and fair elections, and instead of rigging the results like past leaders, you actually win because of your success. The people trust you. They know you're building something real. In the next elections, you are re-elected with over 70% of the vote. Your policies continue to work. Burkina Faso's GDP grows at the fastest rate in West Africa. Public services improve, healthcare expands, and literacy rates climb. Farmers are exporting goods across Africa and beyond. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are still challenges. Corruption, though weakened, is always trying to creep back in. The economy is still vulnerable to global fluctuations, and the fight against terrorism isn't over. However, your people are educated, organized, and confident in their future. They now have the tools to build on your legacy. So, in answer to the question, how do you make Burkina Faso rich from nothing? Take control of your natural resources. No more unfair deals. Burkina Faso's wealth should benefit its people. Invest in security. Without safety, businesses won't invest, farmers won't produce, and the economy won't grow. Diversify the economy. Mining is important, but agriculture, industry, and technology are the real future. Build strong institutions. Corruption and instability have held the country back for too long. A strong legal system is key. Educate and empower your people. A skilled workforce is more valuable than gold. The more educated your people, the stronger the nation. You have done it. Burkina Faso is no longer a struggling, unstable nation. It is now one of the fastest growing economies in Africa. Your people are healthier, wealthier, and more secure than ever before. The world sees your country not as a place of conflict, but as a rising powerhouse in West Africa. And to think, it all started with one decision: to finally take Burkina Faso's destiny into its own hands.